All right. Welcome back to the channel again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank y'all so much for coming over. Wanted to get to this video. Diddy claims feds raided jail cell, took privileged material. I always find it weird, man, when people like go to jail and then have like these certain type of expectations, you know. I mean, we got the whole, innocent until proven guilty, but at the same time, man, it's like what all this stuff that's being alleged, it's like, and then the whole like phone calls and all this stuff, it's like, I don't know what he's expecting, you know? So we gonna check this out. Again, appreciate all the love and support with you guys watching, subscribing, sharing, all that, man. We ain't gonna waste no more time. Let's jump right into it.
All right, welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andy Mack. A new big development around Diddy as we're following this case very closely here on Live Now from Fox as Diddy's lawyers say the feds raided his jail cell and seized a bunch of privileged material. So an interesting one to say the least about this. I want to put up some posts here from former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani about this, saying Diddy's lawyers are claiming that it violates his Fourth Amendment right. However, inmates don't have Fourth Amendment expectation of privacy in prison, so that argument is weak. Guards can search his cell without probable cause.
Yeah, that's what I just said at the beginning. You know, they said took privileged material. I mean, I don't know what exactly it was, but it's like there's nobody really on the outside uh who is like defending him. When I say like nobody really, I mean like who people aren't, alleging them to be part of it too. So
or a warrant. So a big development there in terms of this. Privileged material, different. The feds usually have a taint or dirty team of agents who aren't working on the case to conduct these searches. That way, if they see privileged materials, the clean team won't be disqualified from the case. It goes on to say as well, the prosecutors have reason to believe Diddy is obstructing justice from the prison by contacting witnesses through intermediaries. They made the same argument during his bail hearing. I think they have evidence to back it up. All right, as we continue on, witness tampering also falls under the crime fraud exemption to attorney-client privilege. All right, let's bring into the conversation right now Nima Rahmani, former federal prosecutor. Nima, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox to discuss a lot of these takeaways. And you detailed it very well there in those series, that thread of posts on social media. What's your biggest takeaway from this search of that jail cell for Diddy?
Well, the defense is going on the offense here, and they filed a motion alleging these constitutional violations, Fourth, Fifth, Sixth Amendment violations, and outrageous government conduct. And they're trying to argue, and Judge Subramanian is actually going to hold a hearing on this. He's the presiding judge in the case, whether the government did anything wrong. And of course, prosecutors, on the other hand, are going to go on the offensive themselves. And they're saying that Diddy is trying to obstruct justice, tamper with witnesses, trying to dissuade them either by blackmailing or threatening them or even outright bribing them to change their testimony. This is a case that's going to come down entirely to the testimony of those witnesses and victims. So to the extent that they go sideways or do a 180 or change their stories at trial, that's really the only chance that Diddy's defense team has here.
I want to ask you about how the feds go about this, because the searching there of the jail cell for Diddy, they don't necessarily need a warrant. How does that typically happen?
So when you're in custody, really your Fourth Amendment privilege goes out the window. Those rights, those constitutional rights to be free from unreasonable searches and seizures, it requires an expectation of privacy. And you just don't have that in prison. So The clearest example I like to give is if you're in custody, your phone calls can and will be recorded. Obviously, you and I, out as free people, we have rights that prevent that from happening. You need a warrant, you need a wiretap for something like that. You don't need that when you're in prison. Same thing with your jail cell. I mean, you can't demand that law enforcement doesn't come in or prison guards don't come in. You can't expect a warrant like you would in your home or your car, for instance. So guards can go in there at any time and toss the place. Now, obviously, what you don't want if you're prosecuting the case is to have your agents see material. They shouldn't have communications with lawyers. That's the most privileged under the law, really the most protected. So what they'll do is they'll send in other agents, the clean team, won't have anything to do with that. The folks that are actually working on the case, you have these other agents that are essentially walled off. So if they see something, they'll set it aside and they'll look for evidence of contraband or some other evidence that Diddy is engaging in unlawful conduct from his prison cell.
And I want to ask you about that. Not only the search there as they kind of go about this, and you mentioned the Fourth Amendment there, the ability to go in there, but was there maybe any indication for this search? Because you imagine you don't just go in there without any idea that you might find something. Do you think there was any indication that this might have been happening and that's why they did it?
Yes. Prosecutors believe that Diddy is using other people's phone numbers in custody or making three-way calls to people out of custody to contact witnesses. So, you're assigned a specific.
And again, going back to that video I did where, you had the content creators who are being approached allegedly by people from Diddy. I mean, they're asking questions, offering money, all this type of stuff. So, this is, what they're saying they're trying to prevent. So I like I said, I feel like when you're desperate, you're just going to try every single thing. But I don't know why you would think you would have some type of privileges when you're, it's just so weird to me. Like, Diddy being from New York and seeming, trying to have this tough guy persona, like, like if you're from the streets, it's like, this is something that's cold. Like that, you should know that going into jail, that you're not going to have any of these type of privileges. But, thinking money is crazy, man. Crazy.
Number, a PAC number, PAC number that allows you to make phone calls when you're in prison. So the argument is that Diddy is using other inmates' phone numbers to contact people on the outside, or he's contacting his family members and using three-way and other software to contact witnesses through his son, for instance, with a three-way call. That's the argument here. Apparently, they have the receipts and recordings to prove it.
Sheesh. All right, very good. And I do want to ask you about attorney-client privilege, because you mentioned it in the post as well, talking about witness tampering also falls under the crime fraud exemption to attorney-client privilege. Diddy's only real chance at acquittal is to pay off, threaten, or blackmail the victims to change their stories. Prosecutors want to make sure that doesn't happen. Let's talk about attorney-client privilege, because it's not necessarily all-encompassing. Can you describe some of that?
The crime fraud exception says that you can talk to your attorney for the purposes of obtaining legal advice, and that's absolutely protected. That evidence can never come in. It can't be discovered. Law enforcement can't get it. But you can't use your lawyers to commit a crime or a continuing fraud. You can talk to them about something that's already happened. So to the extent that Diddy is using his lawyers to tamper with witnesses, obstruct justice, and otherwise affect the integrity of the proceedings, that's outside the attorney-client privilege. So that's what that argument is.
All right, very good, because that was very interesting to me. And I want to ask about what happens from now, because let's say the federal authorities find something like this. How much more detrimental can it be for Diddy, and how will they use it in this case?
So there's a few things that can happen. The first is he's almost certainly going to remain in custody to the extent that he's engaging in this conduct. And the government will continue to make these arguments during bail hearings because the defense keeps asking for bail. And they're trying to put up that same $50 million bail package with more and more restrictions. So that's one issue. How does it affect bail? It could lead to additional charges. Obviously, he's already charged with, racketeering and sex trafficking and prostitution, but they can pile on obstruction charges on top of it. Not to say it's going to necessarily add a whole lot of time, but it's going to be bad evidence that's going to come out at trial that, Diddy's trying to dissuade these witnesses who are testifying against them or blackmail them. We know that he has lots of video of them or potentially even bribing them either outright or through one of these civil cases. And then the third issue is he might lose his phone privileges entirely. So it can cause problems for him within the MDC. So it can affect the legal case, it could affect bail, it can even affect the privileges that he's enjoying there in the MDC and in prison.
All right, very, very interesting. I want to ask about the other side of this. If you're the federal authorities, you're raiding this cell, you're looking for possible some of this evidence as well. Could it backfire for them? Could that lead to a mistrial or something happening in this case?
It could always backfire, especially if the agents that are working on the case and the prosecutors do see that privileged material. They could potentially get kicked off the case if for some reason the government does something outrageous. That's why you hear this outrageous government conduct motion. Potentially, as an extreme remedy, the judge can dismiss the case. But normally, in my experience, federal prosecutors, especially down in the Southern District of New York, they know what they're doing. It's a very high-profile case, likely to go to trial. They know how to handle these the right way. And this is something you learn even as a baby prosecutor. Don't send your agents, don't send your lawyers in when there might be privileged material. When someone has a lawyer, make sure it's someone else that's walled off from the case. So I expect that they did this the right way.
All right, my last question, Nima, before I let you go. You mentioned that immediate hearing. What could we expect to be heard there? What is the outcome of this?
Well, the judge is taking this seriously, and obviously we know that, Diddy's just like any other criminal defendant, but the practical matter is this is one of the highest profile trials, maybe the biggest trial happening in the country right now. It's almost certainly going to go to trial. So the judge is going to make sure that he takes all these allegations seriously. He hears all the evidence and so forth. I expect that defense motion to be denied, but the judge is going to hear it because, again, the allegations are very serious.
All right, very serious allegations in this most recent development, but in the case overall. All right, Nima, thank you again. I appreciate your insight as always here on Live Now from Fox.
Oh man, yeah. I had to watch this and try to inform myself. It's a lot because I was like, when they said took privileged material, I was just trying to see what the hell they were talking about. But I mean, like I said, I feel like he should have known this going in. Like as far as phone calls being recorded, all that type of stuff. Like that's why I keep saying the word desperate, just trying to try everything in his power to get up out of there. But if they let him out, you talking about like, I mean, you see it in movies. You see it in movies, man, when people get out of jail and they're being escorted somewhere, or even the prisoners that are like being transferred. You always see what happens. Something crazy goes down. Next thing you know, they're running in the forest somewhere. But again, as videos come out, I will continue to react to them. I feel like he may have known this stuff. He's just acting like he didn't. Just trying to shoot his shot. Hey, appreciate y'all coming over and watching, man. It's just gonna keep getting crazier, man. All right, peace out.